IELTS 2021 model answers for part 2 of your test. Use these model answers to get ideas for your test and also to get vocabulary and language that you can use in your own answers. The answers are from my friend Doug.
Describe a special hotel you have stayed in. You should say where it is, what it is like, why you went there, and how you felt about it.
A couple of years ago, my cousin suggested a trip to our home to visit with friends and family. I agreed it would be a good time since it was summer and I miss hanging out with my friends there. My cousin booked a couple of rooms and the bus tickets. We went by bus, both to save money and enjoying the scenery along the way. The bus trip was uneventful, and I watched the world go by and read a book, as there was no internet service available to use my smartphone. Upon arrival in the early evening, we grabbed a taxi and headed to the hotel. I expected a modest place, but to my surprise, it was a 4-star hotel. The building was set back from the road, and the grounds were decorated with ornamental trees, which were lit up as darkness set in. It was very impressive. As we entered the lobby, which was spacious, with a fountain off to the side and a comfortable sofas to sit and relax. We were shown to our rooms, which were not spaces but were clean and had the necessary features including bed, wardrobe, a desk with flat TV. We called our parents and stated we were weary and would visit the next day. Then we called our friends to meet by the pool or the courtyard and hang out and exchange stories. The hotel food and service was excellent and we booked another night. During the next day we relaxed and swam in the large pool at the back of the hotel. All in all, it was a great trip and we were able to escape the hustle and bustle of the city and relax.
Describe something you bought that you felt satisfied with. You should say what you bought, where you bought it, what it is for, and explain why you felt satisfied with it.
One of the hardest items to learn and become familiar with was my first smartphone I purchased some years ago. I had to transition from my simple cell, which I used for texting, and the odd phone call, to, in my opinion, a complicated and unnecessary luxury. My friends would chuckle as I pulled out my old phone, as they all had the newest technology. I resisted their teasing and recommendations to keep up with the times. There was a time, however, when my cell phone service provider updated their equipment. I would no longer support my older technology. Deciding which phone to buy was difficult, as there was many specifications and features I did not understand. I read reviews and listened to advice from friends and finally decided on the make and model I wanted. Fortunately, the desired phone was coming on sale, and I made my decision to purchase the latest Samsung model from the Samsung retailer at my local shopping center. The challenge started with a gadget that was totally unfamiliar to me, but with the internet and help from my friends, I overcame the difficulties. I have upgraded the software and applications a few times over the years, use it daily, and I never leave home without my phone. I still have and use my first smartphone to text, make calls, explore the internet, and play games. I especially like to stay in touch with friends and family with social media, posting videos, pictures, and having video conversations. I am very satisfied with my phone.
Describe a time when you got close to wild animals. You should say where it was, what the animals were doing, who you were with, and describe your feeling when seeing the wild animals.
Last summer I met up with some friends at a local cafe to relax and hang out for an evening. They were cycling enthusiasts that would, weather permitting, cycle to local villages and sites of interest most weekends. As they shared their stories, I found them interesting and asked frequent questions. Sensing my interest, they invited me along on their next trip to a nearby village. I tried to beg off, stating I didn't have a bicycle, but Chad, my friend, offered to lend me his extra wheels. I agreed to borrow the bike and join them on their next excursion. It was pleasant to escape the hustle and bustle of the city, breathe fresh air, and feel the wind on my face, and I have joined them on many rides since. During one trip, as we were riding single file for safety, should a car or truck need to pass, the leader raised his hand to signal stopping. He pointed to a bush, and to my surprise and amazement, we had spotted 2 deer, a doe and her fawn, quietly grazing about 15 meters from where we stopped. We must have been upwind from them, and as we were required, we didn't startle them. I was fascinated to watch them bending down to grab foliage and raise their heads and chew. I was overwhelmed by their grace and beauty. Unfortunately, we only got to watch them for just over 5 minutes before an automobile passed us and scared them off. I have rarely seen wild animals, and I was delighted to observe the deer.
Describe a toy you liked in your childhood. You should say what kind of toy it is, when you received it, how you played with it, and how you felt about it.
I was especially looking forward to my 10th birthday, as many of my friends and family, some I had not seen for some time, would attend. I was hoping for a model train, and I was not to be disappointed. Traditionally, in my family, the routine is a meal first, with some of my favorite dishes, followed by cutting the birthday cake. I was grateful and excited to share this special day with everyone. Finally, I got to open my gifts. Mom and Dad's gift was first, and as I unwrapped it, I felt excited and a bit apprehensive that I might be disappointed. I was almost in tears when it was revealed that it was the train set I desired, comprising a locomotive, 3 cars, and a caboose. The party guests must have been told I was getting the train set, as I got additional track and model town buildings. My cousins joined me and played with the gifts, putting the track in different arrangements. I believe they may have been a bit jealous, and some got train sets as gifts from their friends and family after my birthday. I spent many hours constructing the building models and rearranging the track to visit the model buildings. My interest in trains grew, and I would search railroad history on the internet. I would save up and purchase additional cars and buildings. Many hours of play and building was some of my favorite memories.
Describe an unforgettable bicycle trip you went on. You should say when it was, where you went, who you were with, and explain why you think it was unforgettable.
Last summer, I met up with some friends at a local cafe to relax and hang out for the evening. They are cycling enthusiasts that would, weather permitting, cycle to local villages and sites of interest most weekends. As they shared their stories, I found them interesting and asked frequent questions. Sensing my interest, they invited me along on their next trip to a nearby village. I tried to beg off, stating I didn't have a bicycle, but my friend Chad offered to lend me his extra wheels. I agreed to borrow the bike and join them on their next excursion. It was a great bike, black in color, with all necessary equipment including headlight, taillight, water bottle holder, and saddlebags. I hadn't ridden a bike since secondary school, but soon became comfortable riding around the neighborhood. Before the scheduled ride, I purchased a helmet and riding clothes for safety concerns, hoping I would conform style-wise with the guys. Saturday arrived and I met up with the group and we started our trip. It was not a race to the finish, but rather a leisurely pace, and I was able to keep up. It was pleasant to escape the hustle and bustle of the city, breathe fresh air, and feel the wind on my face. We stopped along the way to rest and chat, and I had a great lunch at our destination. This was my most memorable trip, as it started my enjoyment of riding for the sheer pleasure of it. I enjoyed the experience so much that I bought Chad's spare bike and ride with the group most weekends.
Describe a short trip you often take but do not like. You should say where you go, when you go there, why you go there, and explain why you do not like about the trip.
Probably the most tedious trip I need to take every day is my commute to and from work. After waking up and getting ready to leave, I check the weather forecast and dress accordingly. It is a short walk to the bus stop. The bus usually runs on time, but the wait can be miserable in foul weather. As the bus approaches, I hope it's not too crowded and I will have a seat rather than having to stand. My city has good transportation options with SkyTrains and buses, and the trip usually takes half an hour if the traffic is not congested. While on the bus I read or use my phone exploring the internet, playing games, or catching up with friends on social media to pass the time. The route goes through the city, so there's not much to see, and stops a couple of blocks from where I work. Again, if the weather is bad, the walk is unpleasant. Recently, I purchased a bicycle to take weekend rides with my friends to local sites of interest and nearby villages. It is pleasant to escape the hustle and bustle of the city, breathe fresh air, and feel the wind on my face. Since buying the bike, I ride to work now, which takes about the same time as by bus. I save money and get some needed exercise. Although riding allows me to view the shops along the way, it is still boring with few interesting stops. I do occasionally stop to buy groceries and necessities.
Describe a time you made a promise to someone. You should say what the promise was, who you make a promise to, whether you kept the promise, and explain why you made it.
As the COVID-19 pandemic spread through the country, my parents had me promise to isolate and not leave home unless absolutely necessary until a vaccine was available. They were especially concerned about their parents, my grandparents, as they were in a high-risk category and had some underlying medical issues. If they got infected, there was a high probability of serious illness and maybe death. I rarely make promises, as I am afraid I might accidentally spill the beans, but this was one I would keep. At first, it was difficult to stay home, and I ventured out only to buy groceries and necessities. I was so bored, but kept in contact with friends on the internet, read, and exercised indoors to stay in shape. I would phone my grandparents every day and find out if they needed anything. If they did, I would leave packages on their doorsteps, being very careful with washing my hands and wearing a mask. They were very grateful for my calls and help. I was informed during my isolation that one of my friends had contacted the virus and, being young and healthy, would recover. But I was grateful that I had not met up with him and spread the virus to my family. It has been almost a year since I made that promise, and my grandparents are scheduled to receive a vaccine as soon as it is available. I look forward to visiting with them again.
Describe a time when you ate something for the first time. You should say what you ate, when you ate it, where you ate it, and how you felt about it.
I am an adventurist when trying different international cuisines from around the world. I have sampled French, Italian, Middle East, Indian, and Asian dishes, and many more. I like the taste of different ingredients and spices. Just last year, I was invited to join a good friend's birthday party that was being held at a Japanese restaurant that featured high-end sushi rolls, which I had not tried before. I was apprehensive about consuming raw fish and shellfish, as I was worried about my sensitive stomach reacting negatively. I started with a California roll, which contained processed crab. Dipping it into the sauce provided, I was introduced to the spicy and hot wasabi for the first time. Wow, it was overpowering and overwhelmed the flavor of the roll content, and I learned to use the sauce sparingly. I shared a tuna roll and a dragon roll, which contained eel. Both were delicious. As the evening progressed, I was more adventuresome and joined others in more exotic sushis and maki dishes. The sushi chef was very informative about the ingredients, which included rice and seaweed, with seafood including tuna, smoked salmon, eel, crab, and shrimp, with vegetables like cucumber and avocado, and some were rolled in fish roe. My favorites were tempura shrimp and spicy tuna rolls. As is the Asian way of dining, which is a slow, leisurely event, we exchanged some stories and told some jokes. The party was not only about the dining, as I got to hang out and make some new friends. I had a great time and enjoyed the food and company.
Describe a time when you gave advice to someone. You should say when it was, who you gave the advice, what the advice was, and explain why you gave the advice.
A few weeks ago, a colleague asked me about IELTS mock test I had taken on the internet. He asked for some tips and suggestions to improve his score, as he had not done well on his last test. I advised him to do a few mock or pretend tests themselves with an IELTS teacher, as they had helped me immensely, and they would provide practice and help him prepare. I mentioned some of the suggestions my teacher made, like reducing vocal fills and not using informal words like yeah and you know, which will also improve intonation and rhythm. In addition, questions may ask about when you're a child, and I suggested phrases like when I was in elementary school or secondary school. This would give the listener a time frame you are going to speak about and may add to your vocabulary mark. Another suggestion my teacher made is that when asked about the future, to have a good start like, it's difficult to predict what might happen in the future, however, I believe, making this a compound sentence with a good conjunctive. Then I went on to suggest he prepare and practice openings for Part 2 descriptions for a person, a place, thing, and an activity. These preparations will enhance his answers. I mentioned that my teacher suggested using alternate words that are not in the question to demonstrate vocabulary. Also to look up words expressing emotions and feelings to make answers more interesting and improve vocabulary score. These are some of the suggestions that I hope to implement during my next test and get a good mark.
Alright, so I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, make sure you've liked it, and even better, subscribe to me so that you'll get my upcoming videos about Part 2 questions, Part 3 questions, and also some skills and strategies for taking the IELTS speaking test.